So recording these fertility expert interviews have been an absolute highlight of my year, and we're finishing the year off strong with my colleague and friend Sarah Holland, the Fertile Mindset coach. This interview was probably one of the funnest hours I've had this year. It's amazing whenever we get together, we're both so passionate about using EFT for fertility, and we wanted to take the opportunity to dive so much deeper. And so in this interview, we're going to be really talking about what is possible with this technique. We're not going to be teaching the technique. We have other resources for you to do that. This is to really introduce you to what it can do and the power of this. So Sarah Holland, as I said, is the Fertile Mindset coach, and she has a unique, effective and empowering approach to fertility support. She's worked in the world of fertility since 2001, and having experienced fertility challenges herself, she pioneered the use of EFT tapping specifically for fertility. With the Fertile Mindset approach to coaching, support and emotional healing, she's helped thousands of people negotiate the emotional rollercoaster of fertility issues. Sarah believes it's possible for anyone's fertility journey to become much more positive and a fulfilling experience, and that by recognizing and supporting the emotional aspects of fertility, the path to parenthood can become more successful in every way, including creating a family. So I am going to jump into the interview now. There are all of Sarah's contact details underneath this episode. I hope you enjoy it. So welcome to the podcast. It is lovely to have you.
Oh, thank you, Naomi. It's so lovely to see you and have a chance to chat again, because we won't meet in person at the moment, but really lovely to see you again.
And I'm so excited about today's episode because we're really going to dive deep on our shared passion, which is EFT tapping, emotional freedom technique. And so many times, we were just chatting about this before we hit record. We're invited to come and speak in summits and talk about EFT. And what people want is for us to teach it and just give like a little quick sort of intro to it. And today we want to really dive deep and really talk about how powerful this technique is. Because so often when you first come into contact with this, it's this weird thing where you're tapping bits of your face and your body. And until you've experienced what it can do, you think it is so strange. But the reason people get sort of hooked on this and use it not just to support them through fertility, but ongoing, this is something that I still use on a weekly basis, is because it is like having a therapist literally in your fingertips. Mm-hmm. One of the things we're going to talk about today is how much you can do with this technique on your own, being your own therapist, and then the difference between doing that and actually working one-on-one with an EFT therapist. So let's dive in. Sarah, where do you think we should start?
Gosh, there's so many places we can start. I'm wondering whether we should just address the elephant in the room that you talked about first of all, though, that it looks really weird. So, and some people, I guess, listening today, they won't have even heard about EFT before, and this is brand new, and they're thinking, what is this if this is really weird? And those others that are familiar with it are like, yep, we know why it looks strange. Because I think that is it's kind of the only obstacle, I think, to people using EFT. Sometimes, not for everybody, but I know it was for me personally. And if it was for me, and now I'm obviously the biggest fan of EFT, it's my whole life completely. If it was for me and I put off using it and I thought it was too strange for words, then I can imagine it would be for many people. So I wondered if we could just talk a little bit about that, really, about what EFT is, what it looks like, what you're actually doing, and the kind of thoughts behind it as well. So there's a bit of context. Do you think that'd be a good place to start?
Yeah. EFT is a meridian energy technique where you're basically tapping on acupressure points on your face and body. They're the same points that you use in acupuncture, but we're just using our fingertips rather than needles to stimulate the points. Sarah, do you want to sort of add to that?
Yeah, I think it's so important that you mentioned that what it is based on. It's based on the Chinese meridian system, because I think the majority of people, well, everybody's heard of acupuncture, and the majority of people on a fertility journey have used acupuncture or at least researched it. And it feels quite familiar, doesn't it? Acupuncture as a technique, despite it still, not being having a huge amount of history, at least in this part of the world. But it's become very accepted, and it's very normal, to have acupuncture. So we use the same points, just as you said, in acupuncture, but with a tapping technique on the points rather than inserting needles on them, which is often a huge relief anyway, that there aren't more needles involved, because there's more than enough needles on your average fertility journey. But it does look a little strange. And that's what we were talking about, wasn't it? How strange it can look to be tapping on points on your face, your hands, your upper body, your head. And that apparently, because that's what we're going to be talking about, creating these huge emotional shifts and being able to help where perhaps other techniques haven't helped, in reducing anxiety or eliminating phobias, managing stress, so many things it can do. And it does kind of sound a little bit unbelievable. And I know it did for me. I approached EFT as a therapist already. I was a reflexologist I trained in 99, qualified in 2000, and immediately started working with people with fertility issues. So I was really interested in the emotional side, because I was becoming aware of, the huge emotional part of the fertility journey. And I was open to all kinds of different techniques, and I kept hearing about EFT, and it annoyed me, to be honest, because I thought, this is ridiculous. this tapping technique, it just seemed, how can that possibly help? We need to look at things like psychotherapy and hypnosis and, things that will work with the mind. I didn't understand how tapping on the body could work with the mind. I wasn't making the connection until one day when someone offered me a session free of charge. It was someone who was newly qualified. He was building up experience and case studies, and he was just offering it to his therapist community, which I was a part of. And I was like, oh, what have I got to lose? I'll just try it. This crazy technique. It's not going to cost me anything. He's looking for case studies, so he obviously thinks it can work. And he wanted people to address phobias. And I had a list at that stage of phobias that I could address. So I was like, yeah, this is for me then. This will try out this crazy tapping technique. And I went with my phobia of public speaking, which was top of the list, and it was my most urgent phobia because I had to chair a meeting for my local reflexology group, and I was terrified, really, really terrified. I didn't want to do it. I was thinking of cancelling it. So I thought, yeah, that's a good test for this crazy tapping technique. Went in very skeptical. People often ask me, do I need to believe in this for it to work? Because I feel skeptical. And I say, no, you really don't need to. There's no placebo effect. It's not about you believing it's going to work and it will work. Give it a try and see. So I went in very skeptically, thinking, well, this won't work, but at least I'll know what this is about, what people are talking about. And within 20 minutes, my lifelong phobia had gone, which I could have fallen off my chair. I was so amazed. And from that moment, I was completely intrigued. Well, if it can do that in 20 minutes, what else is possible? And from that day onwards, I didn't slow down. I just carried on my journey, finding about what EFT is, how it works, why it works, what else can I use it with, and then quickly into the field of fertility, which of course is what we're going to be talking about today. But yeah, I think if anyone comes across it, sees a YouTube video or wherever, hears about it and thinks that does look strange, well, if they keep listening to our conversation now, I'm sure it will give a lot more, insight into what is really going on with this tapping technique and how it is so useful.
Oh, thank you so much for sharing that story, because I think that's how, and that's what we're going to be doing today, sharing lots of stories of women who have used this and the transformation, the changes that have happened, because it's all very well, you can see the technique, especially if you watch. Oh, and by the way, anyone who wants to, or hopefully all of you listening will want to try this out afterwards. Both Sarah and I have free resources that include tutorials of how to get started on this. So even though we're not covering that in today's session, because obviously those of you listening on the podcast won't be able to see what we're doing, please do check out those resources, and you can watch and listen to the tutorials afterwards. But yes, when you first see, it can just feel so strange and unbelievable. But then very quickly, hopefully you'll experience your own shift.
And when you feel, that's what happened to me. I read about it in Emma Cannon's book, The Baby Making Bible. And I was doing all the book, and I was doing the herbs, and I was seeing an acupuncturist, and I was doing all these different things. And then it got to the bit that was like, now I want you to tap on your face and say these things. And I was like, oh, Emma, oh, what are you getting me to do now? But I was like, you know what? I'm doing the rest of the book. She's the specialist. Let's go with it. And I tried it, and yeah, felt after 10 minutes completely different to how I'd felt before I started tapping. And I was fascinated. And yeah, I went and then trained as an EFT therapist a few months later, because I was like, this is so powerful. And so it felt magical. It literally felt like, before finding that book, I'd been like sending out this intention. I want something to stop this negative voice in my head. I want something to help just make me feel better, because I can't cope with what's going on, and the what if I never get pregnant, what if this is it, what if I never get to be a mum. And the tapping provided that relief. And it was just like exactly that whole thing of like, what else can this do? Oh my god. And because it's your own fingertips and you're literally helping yourself as well, there's something so powerful in that it's not just, you don't, you can go and be supported by people, but you can also do so much yourself.
And I think anything on this journey that is empowering and that we can take back control over, something that we can do every day, every week, however often we need it, but we know that we've got it there instantly, is so reassuring. You don't just have another appointment to add to your lists and, another person that you've got to see all the time in order to get the benefits. It's wonderful to have something that you can do, isn't it? Whenever you need it.
And it's also it's even for me, I found that, because at the time I'd been using mindfulness as my like main go-to sort of anxiety defense. But then it was very much, if I was like, on the tube and felt like a panic attack was coming on, I mean, I was like, okay, so let's sit down quietly and meditate, wasn't an option. Whereas tapping on my face and hands was immediately changing my body. So let's talk a little bit about physically the changes that can occur while you're tapping, and then we'll go on to the emotional shifts. But I think especially if you've experienced or are experiencing anxiety, you're physically experiencing anxiety in your body, and being able to have something physically to then counteract that anxiety with. So do you want to talk to us a little bit about that, Sarah?
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Excuse me, the kind of physical response that we get to emotional issues. So anxiety and stress and worry and whatever it is, that we feel it in our body often, even before we know what the thoughts are or where it's come from. Like you say, having a panic attack or anxiety attack, you can feel that response start to happen. And yeah, if you're looking at a technique that's trying to relax your mind and understand your mind and get you to a calm place, that can just feel too much when you're all consumed by physical symptoms and stress. So if you can just focus on the physical symptom, say that's the shortness of breath or the tension in your muscles or whatever it is, and tap on that and focus on that with a technique, then it makes it so much more straightforward, doesn't it? It's very easy to implement. And actually, I say to the women that I support, that this is the simplest way to use EFT. You don't need to analyze where that thought, that stress has come from, that reaction has come from. Just focus with what your body is showing you, because your body knows where it's come from. It knows what's going on in the background, even if you consciously don't right now because you're too stressed and too overwhelmed to connect the dots. But if you focus on the apparent symptom, how it's manifesting and how it's showing itself, then it will be doing the work behind the scenes as well. So it's a really nice, simple way, really elegant way to use EFT by yourself, I think. And I'm so pleased to hear you would use it as well in like a public situation, like being on the tube. I'm finding more.
Oh yeah, I'm one of those nutters.
Yeah.
I'd be there doing the full. So there's bits of people who haven't tried it. The last bit, you end up tapping under your armpit and then the top of your head, and you literally look like you're going ooh, 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 like a monkey. So how you teach kids it is you literally go on them with a monkey at the end. And and you can do a mini version where you just do it on your hand, so it can be very subtle. But I was like full on. No, I'm doing the whole thing, and people would be looking at me being like, what is the crazy way you're doing? But it helped me because I liked I liked the routine of it and the physicality of it, that I was like, doing the whole routine for me, I found really nice. And I quite liked that it was a bit of a conversation starter, because then people would be like, what are you doing? Or even better, when other people go, EFT, love that, and sort of give you a little thumbs up and a wink. And it was a bit like this kind of secret club of people in
brings
the
us all out the
know.
woodwork. That reminds me of this is off on a tangent from fertility, but I'm sure everybody today is going to, if you learn a technique like this, any kind of mind body support technique, you're going to use it on many areas of your life, not just your fertility journey, because we are whole people with all sorts of other experiences as well. But it reminded me, you were saying there, of a flight that I had probably about 3 or 4 years ago now, and on the way back it was a bit turbulent, and I was sitting away from my family. I was sitting on a row of 3 with 2 people that I didn't know. And as it was coming to a rather turbulent landing and the plane was all over the place, the woman next to me was tapping frantically on all different points that were all completely wrong, but she was so stressed.
Oh,
and
no.
she was and I said, are you doing EFT? And she said, well, I'm trying to, but I've only just seen one video once and I don't really know what I'm doing and it's not working. So I said, well, I'm an EFT practitioner. Let me guide you through it. So we sat there tapping, and she was completely calm. And her boyfriend next to her said, I've never seen her this calm on a flight. It's insane. So you're right. It gets the conversation going. It can bring out support where you didn't even know it was going to be. But that is the good thing about this is, it's a very usable, easy to use technique in just a couple of minutes, wherever you are, whether you're at home or away or, in a clinic waiting for an appointment. There's lots of different uses of it. So it's very adaptable.
And it's very easy to learn. I think when you first, so definitely go watch the videos, learn how to do it. When you first watch it, you'll kind of go, oh, there's a lot to remember, but it's like, it's like riding a bike. It's like anything. Once you've done it a few times, you just learn it and you then just know it. So now it's got to the stage that the tapping point, you can tap like under your collarbone. And I'll do that now without not even realizing. So my husband will go, what's wrong? What's going on? And I'll be like, I'm absolutely fine, because I'll be tapping to use it kind of as a self-soother, and sometimes not even consciously realizing that I'm doing that. And it'll be when I'm like, about to go, well, actually, this has happened or whatever. But he'll see that and he'll notice it. And it's quite funny now because he's not into EFT or he's not into any of the, the mind body stuff. But occasionally he will be like, oh, so what point should I tap on about this? And it's quite interesting that even someone who's very kind of not into it still sees that there is value in it, because he's seen what it can do for me.
Yeah, and I like what you said there as well about actually just starting to have that intuition with it. And I've noticed that definitely, we've been using it for years, so it's there definitely. But even just within a few weeks or months of using it, if people use it regularly, they start to notice that it's kind of their go-to. So they feel the stress and immediately they can go to it. And once you've learned the points and you always go through them in the same order, watching a few videos, being guided with it, it does soon become second nature. You don't have to think, well, where do I tap next? And it's also a forgiving technique. And if you did forget a point, you can go back to that point again. So yeah, it's really lovely to get it kind of into your muscle memory, so you've got it there ready. I'm interested in what you said as well, Naomi. I know we're just going to have this great chat about EFT and what you can compare with each other. But you said you go to the collarbone point. Have you noticed as well that that's kind of your point? Because that, although we've got all these different points, usually only 1 or 2 that you usually need to tap, that they're the kind of key points for you. And is that collarbone for you then?
Yeah, it's always the collarbone and also the fear point on the back of my hand. So the fear point is between the ring finger and the little finger, and it's like the valley. And that's a beautiful one because you can just massage your hand, and that one I'll go to a lot. So that's generally like one of the first points that I'll teach clients before going to the whole round. That will be, first session, it'll always be like, that's your reset button. That's your fear point. That whenever you're not okay, you can just rub or tap that point. So I use that one a lot as well, because it's just, it's just there, and it just feels really, really nice. I think that's the main thing I love about EFT is you immediately feel better. So it's not, and there's the whole talking side and the psychology side of EFT, which we'll get to. But while we're just still on the physical, being able to physically do something to allow the stress and tension to leave my body. Because with EFT, we're not covering up the negative with positive statements. We're literally releasing tension and negative beliefs from your body. We're actually like helping remove them from our body, because we're all naturally positive and naturally relaxed at our core. So we're not, you know, when we first wake up in that split second in the morning, you are just like a kind of clear vessel. It's only then when you have a thought, which then creates the physical sensation of your body of an emotion, which might be anxiety or overwhelm or joy or excitement or whatever it is. And that's what EFT does, is helps to clear the stuff that we're not enjoying, to allow to bring yourself back to this relaxed state. So take yourself out of stress response, back into rest, digest, heal, and reproduce. So you can just
and that's what makes EFT, in my mind, completely different to the majority of stress management type techniques out there at the moment. You know, like you said, there's that concept, isn't there, of covering up a negative with a positive, saying positive affirmations, or using visualization to instill a positive image in your mind and a positive belief. And they definitely have their place. However, if there's a really strong negative under there that is overriding any positive thought or any positive words that you bring in, it's just rejecting it straight away. It feels like a battle, doesn't it, between the negative and the positive. And it's like, how am I ever going to cover this up? You know, so it feels true and it feels authentic. You know, even just a statement like, you know, I believe I have the ability to conceive. And if all the evidence this far has been, well, I don't, it's really hard to let that take root, you know, if all of those beliefs are really strong from past experience. So yeah, what you just said there about releasing what we don't need is really the core, isn't it, of EFT? That's what it's all about. Hence why it's called emotional freedom techniques, to be free of the emotions, the thoughts, the beliefs that really aren't needed, aren't true, aren't what your mind would naturally want to be thinking and focusing on. It's just the condition that we've got into because of our circumstances or our programming or traumas that we've been through. You know, certain things have been layered up along the way that have stopped us from connecting with our true self. And you said we're naturally positive and relaxed, which might be really hard for people to kind of believe.
Yeah.
Really? I don't feel naturally, I've never been naturally positive and relaxed. You know, there might just be not something that they can relate with. But it's so interesting, which is why people say, you know, it does feel like magic. You said that at the start as well, that you can get in touch with this part of you that is very calm, more neutral, isn't kind of dashing to all the what ifs and the past and the future. It's just staying very present and calm and rational and neutral, being much more solution focused rather than problem focused, being creative, having space in your mind, you know, for all that good stuff to happen. And that is our natural state to be in. That's what serves us best, you know, if we can get to that neutral, comfortable, healthy mindset. And that's all, you know, very simply, that is all that EFT does. It gets you back to that natural place. And then that's where the magic happens, because you're like, wow, you know, I've got resilience and resources that I didn't realize I had. And I can do anything now, or I can make really clear decisions now, and I can focus on whichever fertility path or treatment I'm going to choose, and I can stick to it and feel comfortable with it rather than have all the doubts and the worries and everything coming in. So I think that clarity, gosh, that is like the biggest gift I think that EFT can give anyone facing any challenge, and definitely for fertility challenges. You know, that clarity and strength and resilience. It's awe-inspiring, isn't it, to witness when you see someone connecting with that, maybe for the first time in a very long time, and it feels familiar, doesn't it? It feels authentic and real and permanent, and something that you can really settle into. And this feels good. It doesn't feel like a temporary positive statement that you're just trying to use to cover up, you know, a negative one. It feels like something you can stick with and live with.
Yeah, I think that's so. EFT is fantastic for decision making, because a lot of the time I use it in sessions when people are at this sort of like crossroads where they're not sure what the next step's going to be, and they need to make a decision. They feel like they're, you know, really stuck. EFT is fantastic because instead of just having a conversation, and like a coaching conversation where you would, you know, the coach would be asking you questions to help you, the client, to make a decision. With EFT, it's like we're removing, you know, it could be removing the fears of, so something I've been working on with quite a few clients is actually a fear of doctors, a fear of even that initial consultation and going in and just starting to ask for support, starting to ask, you know, what are the options here? And if you have a fear, if you have like white coat syndrome of like, I just don't like doctors, I don't like hospitals altogether, you're already stalling that potential process based on fears from the past, which have absolutely nothing to do with your current fertility specialist. And so if you clear those fears, and part of that conversation in making the decisions as well will be just taking out all the triggers, all the things, the unconscious stuff that you don't realize is shaping your decision making, and it like brings you back to this clear and a lot of the time you don't even need to know what it is. Like you might not know, you might not think, oh, I have a fear of doctors, or I have a fear of procedures, or I have a fear of something. You might just not feel comfortable with making that first phone call. And what EFT can do in that scenario, if you're working with a therapist, is really, by the questions we ask and by the tapping we do, clear the stuff that isn't needed, that, like you said, just isn't true.
And there's a lot of stuff, isn't there? Let's be honest. Our mind is full of stuff, you know, that we've gathered since the moment we were born, and maybe prior to that as well. You know, a lot of beliefs and thoughts and situations that we've learned from. And that it felt useful to take those learnings at the time to protect us in the future. And I think something that's very obvious when you're on a fertility journey, especially if there's been any kind of loss and setback during that time, which there is for many, and that doesn't always mean pregnancy loss, but it can be the loss of a result for an IVF cycle. It could be anything, you know, that you've just gone through these cycles of loss and setback and loss and setback. And it's very hard to keep moving forward with a sense of hope and positivity, because that hasn't been your story so far. It doesn't mean it won't be your story in the future. You rationally know that, but emotionally, you're so attached to those losses that you've been through already. And it makes sense that you want to protect yourself from that happening again. You know, why would you want to put yourself through that? You want to get pregnant and have that opportunity, but you don't want to put yourself at risk of another loss. So yeah, just really clearing what we don't need, clearing what is not relevant to this moment. You know, it doesn't clear the memories of, obviously, you know, things will have still happened and you will have learnt from those things that have happened, but do you really need to take the emotional story forward as well? You know, is that going to be helpful in the next stage? Because I don't know about you, Naomi, I'm sure you've seen this. We've seen so many similar probably situations with our clients, but people will hesitate over next steps, won't they? And they won't even understand why they're hesitating. It will be, you know, I know this is the right solution. Everyone's recommending this particular fertility treatment or whatever it may be, but I just can't bring myself to go through with it. But at the same time, I know that I'm getting older every day and I'm feeling the pressure, and they just feel in a complete crossroads. So yeah, to get to that place where you can make good, clear decisions that feel right for you, not right for your friend or your sister or your doctor or anybody else, but something that actually, once you've taken into account all the information, you can make a decision that feels right for you, I think is vitally important. And I think when you get to that point, you feel like you are very much committed to taking that path then, so you can stay on it for as long as you wish to and you need to. You don't kind of step back and, you know, one step forward, two steps back all the time. And also you go into it with a sense of, right, this does feel right for now. I'm not going to have any regrets. You know, when I get to the end of this path, whatever the result is, I know why I did this. And I think all of those mindsets and perspectives are so important when you're on a fertility journey, to feel like you have ownership, you know, of each step that you take. And it's hard when you're stressed and overwhelmed and conflicted. It's really hard to take ownership of your decisions, and you end up doing what everyone else says you should do, or just doing nothing because that's safer, and none of those feel good, you know. So I know I took some kind of unusual decisions, people would say, on my fertility journey. And I've had to justify them to doctors and all sorts. And once I say, well, this is the reason why, you know, this is why I chose this particular path, or I didn't choose that path. And they're like, oh, I can tell you've thought about this, and that makes sense. You know, it's having that conscious way of making decisions that is right for you, not just because it's the conveyor belt that you're put on, you know.
And I think that's the powerful thing as well, is really when you start learning about EFT and learning about these techniques, you understand that there's so much going on than just what you're consciously thinking. With EFT, we're impacting the unconscious as well. So fears and phobias are generally created, are stored in the unconscious mind. So sometimes, like, I've, always had a fear of dogs that I didn't know where that came from. I had no conscious memory of anything happening with a dog. But my mum was like, oh yeah, when you were 2, I was holding you and my mum was bitten by a dog while I was being held. So obviously, completely logically, a 2-year-old would go, massive frigging wolf thing, just taking a big chunk out of my mum's leg. Do not ever go near those ever again. So even though there's no conscious memory for me, that was stored in my unconscious of any dog, any size, fear. So with EFT, with that, I could unpick that and go, well, actually, I don't need to be scared of all dogs. I just need to be scared of dogs that look like that. And I was like, well, is that true? Well, no, it was just that one particular dog was hyperactive and etc. etc. It's like, I don't need to be scared of dogs unless they're running at me barking. Do I really need to be scared of that? Well, no, most dogs are just saying hello. So you can see how you can work through the layers and literally reprogram your mind to go, there's no need to be scared of that. You can still be aware of the big dog running towards you. I'm not saying I'm now a fan of dogs running towards me. I will still hold my arms up around my body and be like, I'm not going to let them anywhere near my arms. But still, it's like having that understanding. So I've got here a quote from one of my clients. She was feeling afraid of her upcoming IVF failing. So she did one of the EFT videos from the library and realized it was because she was predicting the outcome to be the all and end all, i.e., if it failed, that meant the final answer would be, I would never be a mum, like failing a test. The EFT video released that emotion and turned these thoughts around. And then for optimism and less pressure and fear around the treatment, as it wasn't the be all and end all. That just shows, so Becky had the awareness that her feeling nervous about, her feeling fearful about the upcoming treatment, she realized she didn't just need to sit with that fear, because some people think, well, once you've had the treatment or once you've had the positive test, that's when you can feel better. But she had the awareness that she could help herself feel better now in the moment by getting to the root of, why am I feeling scared? And once she understood, oh, I'm scared because I think if this doesn't work, that's it, I'll never be a mum. But like, is that true? Well, no. She could do treatment again. There are other options. And it's took that pressure off her of, this has to work. Because if you go into treatment with that feeling, how much pressure and tension are you physically putting in your body of like, it has to work? Whereas if you go and going, this could work. And if it doesn't work, I've got these amazing tools, but I'm putting myself in the best position. That feels so different.
Yeah, gosh, that is so powerful. I wish that these tools and this support were available for everyone undertaking their very first fertility treatment cycle, because I think a lot of people go into it first time, obviously feeling quite naive to it because they haven't been through anything like it before. It may be that they don't know anybody that's been through IVF, or they've never talked to anyone who has been through it. And it's only afterwards that they realize that the mindset and the thoughts and that, like you say, that huge pressure that this must work and it is going to work, and I don't know what will happen if it doesn't work. Oh, I know. And they realize that not only does it make the whole experience just full of stress and tension that impacts on it in so many ways, but then if it is a negative result as well, it's very hard to lift yourself up, because that wasn't prepared for in any way. It was all about, it's got to get to that positive test, and if it doesn't. So I'd say it's probably the majority of the inquiries I get for support are from people who have been through a treatment cycle before, one or more times, and realize, I've got to do this in a different way. It just doesn't feel right to be putting themselves through something so stressful, or in such a stressful way, shall we say, not because it doesn't have to be so stressful. Surprisingly, we have people that relatively glide through treatment cycles and just take it in a very one moment at a time, very present with it, celebrate each moment, each moment that something good is happening, even become kind of ritualistic around the medications and the injections, and just see every drug that they're putting into their body as something really positive, and that they're supporting their body to have this amazing function of conceiving a baby. It can become a magical thing. It can be very different to the stressful, I've got to endure this situation. And something else that I think is really relevant that we just touched on there as well is about staying present, isn't it? You know, I think these techniques, EFT and other techniques, are really focused on keeping you in the present moment, which is the hardest thing for us to do. You know, if you actually observe our thoughts, you know, day to day, we're living in the past and regretting things that we didn't do or things that we can't get back to or whatever it is, and we're living in fear and worry about the future. We're just constantly between the two. And we're very rarely focused on that present moment. Whereas if we do come back to the present, because that is what's real, that's the only thing that's real. The past is gone, it can't be changed. The future we can't predict yet. So what's the point in making up 100 scenarios and living there as if it's happened? It hasn't happened. But what is real is this moment that we're living in. And I think when people use EFT, they naturally do get back to the present moment. And I'm a great fan of Eckhart Tolle's work and the power of now. And I could just listen to him all day talk about this. It's wonderful. And it really is a very different way to live your life and a different way to live anything that's challenging in your life, just to stay present with each moment and calm the mind from jumping to past and future, which is, you can tell yourself to do that. Like, I must stay present, stay in this moment, and obviously focus on the breath or something that brings you back to the moment. But it's temporary, isn't it? Because the minute your mind drifts again, you're back to fearing the future or worrying about the future. So in technique like EFT, it's just fantastic for clearing all of that out, and your mind saying, look, I don't need to go there yet. What's the point? What's the point in making all these different scenarios of what might or might not happen when I could stay present and put all my energies into now and actually enjoy living my life now as well, which isn't something that we've talked about yet, but I know is a big part of what we really hope for our clients, isn't it? Is that, yes, they have a successful and comfortable fertility journey, but actually they live their lives in this moment and don't miss out on the other amazing things that are going on, and don't, you know, feel like they're losing a part of themselves for the sake of their fertility journey. It doesn't have to be that way. You don't have to invest everything into it, do you? You can have yourself back, you know, and everything you enjoy and love about life.
I think that's what's so powerful. I think that what we do as fertility coaches and therapists, like, you know, ideally, it'd be fantastic if we, you know, magically had the solution of how to get every single person on the planet super fertile and pregnant. That, you know, that would be amazing. But that isn't what we do. What we're here to do is to, help people feel better, help people get happy, help people find ways of helping themselves to live their life now, rather than feeling like they're in this limbo land of, you know, one of my most popular blogs that I wrote, I think it was about 7 years ago, is still the most read blog, Happiness on Hold, because it can feel like, you know, I'll keep my body really tense and really vigilant. I will be happy when I get that positive pregnancy test. Then it's like, oh, now I need to get to the 6-week scan. Now I need to get to the 12-week scan. Now the 20-week scan. Okay, after I've given birth. Oh, okay, after I'm past the newborn stage, because that's a bit tricky. Okay, once my kid can walk, once my kid can ride a bike, once my kid can drive a car, like, you're constantly moving the goalpost of when you're saying you're going to allow yourself to relax and allow yourself to just go off guard, just to be like, okay, I'm just going to sit, I'm just going to be. Because we can get in this pattern, it's definitely what I did, of going, I can't relax now because there might be something else I can Google and find out how to fix my fertility, or there might be something else someone I can speak to, or a herb I can take, or a supplement, or something I can do to get myself pregnant. Whereas actually, the majority of cases, the best thing you can do is to be in the moment for at least, you know, a healthy chunk of your time during the day, because your body is actually the thing, the person who is going to be doing the getting pregnant and doing the growing the baby. Your conscious mind kind of needs to just step aside, and, you know, you might need to, you know, you need to look after yourself, get enough sleep, eat properly. You might need treatment to help your body be able to do that. But actually, being pregnant, even getting pregnant, is not a conscious thing that we do. Our body does it. And so if we can get out of our own way and allow our body to do that, how much easier does that feel? It's like, you don't need to get pregnant. You need to obviously make sure there's some sperm introduced to an egg at some point, in whatever way that might be happening for you, be that naturally or through treatment. But actually stepping back, and EFT helps you to be able to do that. Because mindfulness for me just wasn't cutting it. It was helping, but EFT was that physical thing that really, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. There's something you said then I wanted to pick up on, but it's gone. It'll come back in a minute.
Sorry,
As I'm listening, there's so many thoughts coming up. But yes, as you were saying as well about how many different things we might be going off in so many different directions. And I think this is with the I mean, I've started to try and conceive in, what year was it? 2004. There wasn't a lot of information online then. You know, there was some, more than I even needed, to be honest. There was still a lot. But if we compare that now, where we are 16 years later, oh my goodness, you know, everywhere there's so much information. And I was still reading books at that stage. That's where I got most of my information from, not from just browsing online and having this endless stream. And I think we are becoming aware now that that is causing a hindrance to people, you know, is that there's so much information, so many potential apparent solutions, things that you can do yourself, treatments that you can have, supplements you can take, whatever it might be, that in itself is adding to the stress and becoming a problem in itself, you know, that there's too much going on. There was a wonderful woman that I worked with. She's given me full permission to share her story. She's called Joanna, and she came to me when she was still trying to conceive her first baby, and she didn't have a cycle at all. She had PCOS and didn't ovulate at all. So obviously was feeling quite desperate, and, you know, how am I ever going to get pregnant if I'm not even ovulating? So she told me when she'd last ovulated, which I think was about 80 days before, and she had no idea when her next ovulation would come. So she didn't know how to be trying, and she was just very stressed. And in that stress and in that place of not knowing what to do, she'd reached out to so many different modalities and therapists, and was doing everything that you could imagine, including a few things that I'd never heard of. You know, it was just like overwhelming. And she reached out to me in much the same way, in like, oh, an EFT, can that help as well? You know, it was like, this is another thing I can try. So we had an initial chat, and I said, look, if we did work together, what I would want to do is actually work on this overwhelm first. Of everything that you're doing, you're not doing anything very well, let's admit, you know, just a little bit of this and a little bit of that. You're still not ovulating. You're getting more stressed every month. That's the thing that needs to change. And I'm not the one to advise you. I'm not a nutritionist. I'm not a doctor. But we can help you strip back so that you can choose a path that feels right for you. And within the first session, we did that with EFT. It was amazing to watch the clarity that was coming forward. You know, she was getting clear on, well, I have PCOS, so therefore I know I should be cutting out sugar, and I know I shouldn't be drinking tea every day. And I'm going to start watching my cycle and taking my temperature so I can see if I have ovulated or not, you know, and I can get a bit more control back. And she just dropped everything else and just became really focused. And we had weekly sessions just through that first cycle. Anyway, within days of beginning, she saw an uptick on her temperature, and she had ovulated. And she sent me her chart a few days afterwards, and I could see an implantation dip, but I didn't say a thing because I thought, we can't say, we don't know what's happening. But then a few days later after that, she said, I've got a positive test. I ovulated and I got pregnant. And it was amazing. And she just going from that point of, you know, overwhelm to clarity, just having that shift was all that was needed for her. Obviously, everybody needs different things. But what happened with Joanna after that, which is why she's just amazing woman. We're still in touch now. She then wanted to have a second baby. But once she'd given birth, everyone was bringing around cakes and biscuits, and she was drinking tea all day. And she wasn't ovulating again. Even after she stopped breastfeeding, she still wasn't ovulating. And she got in a panic again, and then realized she was kind of a bit frantic again. So she came back to me, right, I need to get my mind focused again. So we did that again, and she got pregnant again. And she got pregnant a third time, and then a surprise fourth time. And she's a mum of 4 children now, 4 children after not even ovulating and not knowing how to find her way out of it. So, you know, I know that's an extreme, you could say, but she's just a normal woman, you know, who was dealing with a very ordinary fertility problem as well, the most commonly diagnosed fertility problem of PCOS, and feeling utterly overwhelmed with it and feeling stuck. And once that was unlocked, she could then find her path with the right support, you know, as well, engaging in the right professional support, and found her solution and got pregnant. So yeah, it's amazing what can happen when we bring order to our mind. That's what, an order to our lives, and order to our approach, rather than trying to do everything at once, you know, just to focus on the things that work, trust the intuition, stay very present, and knowing that you can adjust as you go, but you're staying present with that moment rather than jumping ahead and worrying about all the scenarios.
And that's what's so powerful. And let's talk a little bit about so we've talked about what you can do with EFT yourself and watching videos. So both of us offer packages that include loads of different topic videos, EFT videos, so that you can just dip into them when you have a particular topic. But yeah, let's now talk about what you can do with a therapist, because that illustrates it so beautifully, that so many people on this journey are running around like headless chickens, and the doctors are saying one thing and then their friends might say something else. Google is telling them all the things in the world. And having someone who has, both of us have been through this, we've both been through IVF, we know what it's like, and we are trained in EFT, we're both trained therapists. And so coming to a session, and obviously at the minute everything's on Zoom, wherever you are in the world, you can just book in. Having someone to help you calm that overwhelm and really make a strong plan, because both of us, it's not about just, oh, come and we'll do a bit of tapping. We're saying, like, what outcome do you want here? How would you like to be feeling by the end of working with me? What do you want to achieve? And then we know how to help guide you to that point. So it's about and the experience of both of us working with people, all stages, right from beginning to conceive to someone who's like years in and a lot of losses. We've got that experience that we're bringing that to it as well, along with these techniques that we know can create these massive shifts. So we talked about the physical. Another one of my most favorite case studies was with a client who we were doing a session actually working on a fear of birth was her thing, and as we were tapping, she said she felt this release in her hips and her womb area that she'd had for 12 years. So she had this tension in her womb and hips, but she hadn't realized it was tension. She thought that's how hips feel, because it was daily, it was ongoing, that's just how she felt. And during the session where we're just tapping and we're talking through things, this physical release happened. She said she felt like jelly, and it felt different, and it didn't return. And so the stuff we were working on, all of this emotional stuff from her past, and we cleared it, and it was just, she'd done tapping herself, but she'd never got to that point. So sometimes being able to have that space of a therapist holding the space for you. I say sometimes it's like a massage therapist will be able to massage their arms and their shoulders, and it'd be really nice. But you go and see an actual therapist to really get to that spot that you just can't reach. Would you say it's the same, Sarah?
Yeah, and it's like having a guide, isn't it? When I think people on a fertility journey feel like they're on this journey, but they have no map, or they don't understand how to read the map, and it's just overwhelming. Whereas if you have a guide that is by your side with you each step of the way, you might have a start point. And I always do ask my women that I work with, where do you want to start? What is the most important thing? What's the thought at the front of your mind? What's most overwhelming? And we choose a start point together. But they're not sure what lies after that. They've got the kind of most important worry at the front of the mind. And then it's like, well, what next? How do I resolve this? It feels confusing. So yeah, if you have someone by your side each step of the way, it absolutely makes it a much more illuminating journey, shall we say. You're more likely to find those hidden corners and those dark areas that you wouldn't either know to go to yourself, or you perhaps would feel a bit fearful or uncertain about how to go to it yourself. It's not something you'd want to do by yourself. Gosh, I've been a qualified EFT practitioner working in full-time practice for 16 years now, and I still have a regular EFT therapist myself, of course, because I can tap all the time. I tap with my women, I tap by myself. But yeah, there's times when I'm like, I'm just stuck here. Like, this is interesting and I want to get deeper into it, but I don't know where to go. And I'll speak to somebody and be guided. And your case there that you talked about reminded me in a similar way, and it ties into this as well. A wonderful lady that I supported a few years ago. And she was in her early 40s. She'd already had IVF. It hadn't been successful. And she decided to give herself one more chance at IVF with her own eggs, one more chance, but prepare for it really well first, mentally and physically. And she'd done all the physical work. She'd been doing nutrition and herbal medicine, and she'd got, her hormonal balance was brilliant. Everything looked great, but she still wasn't getting pregnant. And she came to me for the stress side of it, because she was just feeling stressed in general with life, with the fertility, she was aware that she was living day to day in a stress response. So we did a number of sessions just on that, just a couple of sessions just on the stress that she was living day to day. And she got to a point, she was like, yeah, I'm feeling calm day to day now, much more rational in my thoughts. I feel good. And then we talked about, your hormonal balance is really good. Your stress levels are low. You're going to go ahead and have this final IVF now. And, you could get pregnant. And then she went into a complete fear response about getting pregnant. And memories came back to her that she just pushed to the back of her mind, that when I think she was about 19, very young, she'd been to see a doctor about a hip condition that she'd been born with, that was, causing her mobility problems and so on. But this doctor had said to her, you must never get pregnant. It would be dangerous for you to get pregnant. If you did, you would definitely need a cesarean. And I would advise you didn't get pregnant. And she said she went into a complete trauma shock response, left in tears with the words ringing in her head, and panicked. She wasn't intending to get pregnant then, but it had mapped out her life for her, saying you must never get pregnant. So this fear response suddenly came back. If I can get pregnant, I shouldn't get pregnant. And what does it mean? My hips, I can't give birth. I was told I shouldn't get pregnant. So we tapped literally on that memory. It had been over 20 years before, this memory, but she could smell and hear and see the room that she was in when she was given that news so clearly. So we tapped through that memory and let it just drift away. A lot of people tell me that when they tap on a memory that's been very intense, it goes from being full color, moving image to a black and white photograph that's far away. It's like it's in the past, it's gone now. She still had the information from that, but the emotional intensity from it had removed. And as soon as that happened, it was really interesting. She said, I did consult other doctors and they gave me different opinions, but I hadn't been focusing on those. I just had that one in the front of my mind, but now I can see the picture more clearly. And, worst case scenario, I need a cesarean. So what? I can get pregnant. Anyway, she got pregnant within a couple of months before she had her final IVF. She got pregnant actually. And I'm getting goosebumps thinking about it, because she sent me an email soon after her baby was born saying I had the most easy birth. It was like a couple of hours, no pain relief. I didn't even think my body could do that, let alone first time in my 40s. Because she trusted her body and she'd got back into a place of trust and just allowing, rather than being in a fear response, because we know that that's related to, that's a whole other topic about childbirth, but we know that when the body's in a fear response, muscles are contracting and pain is created, which happens within fertility treatment as well. It's really important at transfer stage, for example. But yeah, so it was wonderful. Not only did she get pregnant and felt comfortable getting pregnant, but she also had an amazing birth. So it's so interesting. But if we hadn't, we're going back to, we're talking about one-to-one work, if she hadn't done that one-to-one work, she might have just used a couple of EFT videos or another technique, like you said, like mindfulness or something, just to manage stress and just to feel calmer. But then that fear might have come up still, like, okay, I'm ready to get pregnant. And what would she have done with that fear? So it's having someone by your side is invaluable. I know it's not accessible for everybody, but both of us have ways to, to make that support affordable and more flexible. But if you have something by your side that can help you with what crops up, that's when, the real magic can happen and we can really unlock the potential. That gets very exciting, doesn't it?
I think this is why it's so exciting, and I love this work, because it is like being a detective, isn't it? It's like kind of the way someone says something, or the way their expression will change when you ask them a question, and you'll go, that's that point where the therapist gets their pen out and goes, let's look into that then, shall we? And exactly, it can then open up this, we don't know what we don't know, do we? And if your body has that unconscious belief of, I should not get pregnant, getting pregnant may result in, extreme pain or death or my partner leaving me or whatever it is, that's something that could be holding you back, because your unconscious mind is designed to keep us safe at all times. And so if your body is feeling, for a lot of people going through fertility, it will be like this low-lying chronic anxiety all the time. But it can stem from, this belief of, well, I really want to get pregnant, but what if? And therefore your body is literally feeling anxious, because it's like, you're trying to get pregnant, but I don't think that's safe. I don't think it's safe. So it's ramping up. So being able to really, have someone hold your hand and clear that. So then you're making decisions from, like you said, that place of clarity and confidence, where you're like, this, yes, I'm gonna go and do this now, or actually I'm gonna hold off and I'm gonna take a 3-month break, or whatever it is. This isn't just for people who are going through treatment. This is for anyone who's trying to conceive, or any other issue. Actually, any issue whatsoever. EFT is what you need. Doesn't need to be fertility. Just happens to be both of our passions, because we've been through it. Fantastic. We've been going for nearly an hour, so I think we should probably wrap up, but I think we should definitely continue this conversation in the new year and do another podcast talking about this more, because it is absolutely fascinating, and I'm sure people listening are going to appreciate the stories and really putting into context what is possible with this. So would you like to tell people how they can get in touch with you and what they should do next?
Thank you. And I can't wait to come back and talk more. This is wonderful. So in the meanwhile, thank you so much for offering that as well. We both offer so many, different avenues into support. And I think that's what's wonderful, is that people can get to know people and choose and know techniques. And the particular kind of support that I offer is focused solely on using EFT for your fertility and your wider life. So I know you combine everything together, whereas I really focus on the EFT. So it's good that we have these different approaches. So I have the Fertile Mindset Sanctuary, which is my membership for fertility support using EFT, and really focused on transformation. So really good, effective emotional healing, but also doing that transformational work that we've talked about as well. And what I'd really love to invite everyone to look at is my free level of membership within the sanctuary. They'll get an instant free training where they're guided through exactly what EFT is, how it works, and guided through using it instantly as well, in an extended training. So you can find out, instantly, does this technique work for me? And good news is it does work for the majority of people. A huge, plus 90% of people in research studies it does work for. So hopefully you'd find it's really effective, but then actually start using it as well and be guided through using it and getting a real experience of it. And then also within the sanctuary, you'll have other resources. You'll have reminder sheets and other tapping sheets to take you through different fertility situations and challenges that you might be facing. And you get a weekly email as well on Tapping Tuesday. Our Tapping Tuesday tips emails will come out once a week to keep you on track and keep you supported, and make sure that you remember that you have this amazing technique at your fingertips. And there are other levels of membership as well that bring in more direct support from me, whether that's in a group or whether that's one-to-one. But do come and join us for the free level of membership, because it may give you absolutely everything you need just there. So, and it's a wonderful, very positive step forward to take in taking care of your emotional well-being in this journey.
Fantastic. And what's your website? Where should they go to?
That's at fertilemindset.com/sanctuary.
Fantastic. And are you on social media?
Of course I am. Of course I am. You can find me under Fertile Mindset on Facebook, my Fertile Mindset page there, and Fertile Mindset on Instagram as well, which has just got a little underscore in between, Fertile_mindset, and you'll find me on Instagram there as well.
Fantastic. So I should put all of your details in both the podcast notes and underneath this video if you're watching on YouTube. And yes, definitely watch out for more collaborations with this lovely lady, because I love having these conversations and it's so lovely to do this with you. Sarah, thank you so much.
Thank you too. I could speak to you all day, but thank you so much. It's been wonderful. Thank you, Naomi.
For your free Fertile Thoughts Activation Pack, which includes a powerful 3-minute Mindset Reset MP3 and the first chapter of my upcoming book, which talks about the science between the mind-body link and fertility, go to embracefertility.co.uk and join my mailing list. You can follow me at Embrace Fertility on Instagram, Facebook and Twitter. And you can read, that's my cat joining in, you can click on the link below this episode to read an article about EFT and to watch a tutorial video. And then I'll tell you quickly about the Embrace Fertility Method is my 12-week course, and emotional freedom technique is one of the key pillars of that course. So I use hypnotherapy, mindfulness, cognitive behavioral technique alongside emotional freedom technique to guide people through coping, comfort, connecting, clearing and creating while they are trying to conceive. You can come to fertility.co.uk/embrace for all of the information about the course. Do come and check it out. I also offer one-to-one coaching on Zoom, so wherever you are based in the world, and you can come to embracefertility.co.uk/coaching to find out more about working with me. I hope you've enjoyed this episode. Please do let us know if you do. It's amazing to hear back from you. Please share it with anyone you think might find it useful. I look forward to hearing from you. Bye.